Hello and welcome to Weather HQ. I'm Paolo del Rosario. This week, we're taking a closer look at a range of pressing issues, from the Department of Agriculture's readiness amid tensions in the Middle East to the rising health concerns over smoking and the presence of toxic chemicals in school supplies. Now, to better understand the government's response and what Filipino farmers should anticipate in the upcoming weeks, here's my interview with DA Assistant Secretary Arnel de Mesa.
First of all, agriculture practically will be affected based on fuel increases, fuel price increases. Of course, machineries and equipment runs on fuel, so it might have an impact. And another is on, of course, on the distribution and logistics. Whenever there's price increases, especially if huge increases, it will have some impact on distribution and logistics costs for our agricultural commodities. On fertilizers, 100% of our fertilizers are being imported. Majority of these are coming from China, Indonesia, Vietnam, and Qatar. So coming from the region, it's only from Qatar, so we can easily get our...
Well, Asek, when we talk about the gas prices, the fuel prices, you mentioned it a while ago that it being one of the key drivers of yung prices dito sa Pilipinas. So Asek, right now it looks like we have a bit of problem with yung audio nyo po. Could you hear us?
For fertilizer for the rest of the year.
All right, Asek, sorry, it looks like we're having a bit of issue with yung signal po natin. If it was okay, we'll repeat yung question po just for clarity's sake. When we take a look at the prices of fuel in particular affecting the prices of goods here in the Philippines, especially when it comes to the agricultural sector and particularly the local fertilizer market, nakita po natin that this week we will have a sharp increase in terms of fuel prices. Will that already directly affect yung mga local prices of goods natin and commodities?
Again, Paolo, sa fertilizer, hindi yun makaka-apekto masyado kasi nakarating na karamihan yung requirements natin for the rest of the year. What will impact sa sector might probably be, of course, pag may tumaas ang presyo ng gasolina, we can expect magkaroon ng increases doon sa presyo ng distribution and logistics, especially kung medyo mataas ang pagtaas ng presyo ng gasolina, Paolo.
Well, there could be, given all of the tension happening in the Middle East, of course, this might be the beginning of more difficult movement in and around the region when it comes to supplies, even with the fertilizer. You mentioned po that it will not be affected, at least for the meantime. But are there any contingency plans should the supplies start to dwindle po? Do we have any buffer stocks or emergency sourcing options when it comes to yung local fertilizer po natin?
For our fertilizer requirements, karamihan ng requirements natin are coming from China, Indonesia, Vietnam, and Qatar. So, ang maapektuhan lang yung galing ng Qatar kasi talagang within yung region na meron tayong problema. But nevertheless, we can easily get our sources from other countries, especially China and from ASEAN, na meron tayong mga kinukuha sa ngayon.
Let's move away from local fertilizer specifically po, and let's talk about yung mga input for farmers in general in terms of the rising costs. You mentioned it a while ago that when there will be gas increases, fuel price increases, maapektuhan yung supply chain in general. When we take a look at the farmers, what type of assistance can the government provide, can the DA provide to mga smallholder farmers who may struggle with the rising cost of input?
Matagal na natin ginagawa, Paolo. We're distributing fuel subsidies, especially for those smallhold farmers natin who owns equipment and machinery na run ng fuel. So we're giving out 3,000 to 5,000 fuel subsidy for them. Ganun din yung ating fishermen. We're giving them also fuel subsidy, especially doon sa mga trim tonnage pababa yung kanilang capacity.
When it comes to sourcing material from outside the country, apart from the local fertilizer, you mentioned it a while ago, you listed down the locations kung saan nanggaling po yung local fertilizer po natin. But in terms of importing other goods, some of the materials that the DEA is wary about in terms of yung sourcing po that the geopolitical situation might cause problems with in terms of the supply here in the country?
For other inputs, I guess it's only fertilizer na meron tayong possible na problema, especially nung nagkaroon ng problema ng Russia and Ukraine kasi Russia yung may malaking source natin ng fertilizer, but eventually we easily nakakuha tayo ng ibang sources. So similarly, ganun din yung nakikita natin dito. For other inputs, wala namang other than fertilizer, wala tayong nakikita ibang problema kasi for example, for pork requirements natin, for rice, it's not affected naman itong mga nangyayari sa ngayon.
What's your message to Filipino farmers po, especially when it comes to those worried about the rising costs of yung mga input and of course the potential shortage of fertilizer?
Sa ngayon, naka-ready ang DA to support ang ating mga smallhold farmers and fishers. And at the same time, as I mentioned, we still have enough fertilizer as we go along through the rest of the year. So again, the department is ready to support our farmers and fishers.
Coming up, we'll take a closer look at the health, social, and environmental impacts of smoking. Don't go away. You're still watching Weather HQ. Hello there, welcome back to Weather HQ. I'm Paolo del Rosario. Now, between 2021 and 2023, 9.5 million new smokers, mostly young people, picked up the habit. Now, to help us understand the serious effects of this growing problem, here's my interview with Dr. Jessica Catalan Legarda, the chairperson of the advocacy program of the Lung Center of the Philippines.
Yes, it really concerns us, especially the healthcare sector, because of the 9.5 million new smokers in 2023. Take note, Paolo, that almost 1 million dyan na new smokers and vapers are aged 10 to 19 years of age. Meaning, these are children and young teens who were initiated early into smoking and vaping.
Mm-hmm.
So years and months after, pag na-initiate na siya sa smoking and vaping, eventually, they will suffer early onset diseases, no? So pwedeng laging prone sila to develop respiratory infections. If they have asthma, pwedeng magkaroon ng frequent exacerbations and other early age onset diseases. So, itong tinatawag natin, Paula, na younger generations who are supposed to be the our future, no? Pag-asa ng bayan. So, makikita natin yung impact sa health natin. A younger generation, our future workforce na maagang magkakasakit. So, napaka-alarming nito sa amin.
Doc, smoking prevalence from 14% in 2021 to 18% in 2023. When you talk about the causes of the reason why more and more people, especially the youth, are smoking, why is that? Is it just because of tobacco? Is it because vaping seems healthier, at least looking at it from the outside looking in and maybe not understanding all the health implications?
Yes, actually, it's a hot issue now. So I think one of the major reason in the increase in prevalence, I think it's due to the illicit trade of tobacco and tobacco products.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have when you have illicit trade, no, maraming supply sa market, making it more affordable, diba, and more accessible sa mga smokers and vapers natin, especially to the young adults. So I think that what we can do is we should enforce stricter regulations, diba? If we can stop illicit trade and increase the taxes of tobacco products, ito yung mga magandang move natin in reducing tobacco use.
What's your view on the increasing use of my e-cigarettes and vaping in general among people? Because it feels like it's a similar industry, feels like the same industry when it comes to smoking in general, but then there has been an increase of usage when it comes to that. What is the stand of you in the Lung Center of the Philippines?
Okay, e-vaping should not be viewed or used as a safer alternative. It is equally harmful as a cigarette smoking. So maraming mga contents, no, harmful contents in a vape liquid also.
Mm-hmm.
And also, we are seeing mga acute diseases na brought about by vape. So we have this E-Valley, or e-cigarette vaping associated lung diseases. We were able to document diseases na as early sa mga bata, no? So very equally harmful ang vape with cigarette smoke.
There is a misconception na it is the quote-unquote safer alternative. And when you have people thinking that way, siguro what is the biggest myth that you have to debunk? I know you mentioned a while ago na it is just as dangerous. Pero when people look at it and see that there is a certain lack of, the tobacco, they feel it is a safer alternative. So when you look at all of that together, what are the key myths na kailangan i-bust?
Okay, so remember that vape or cigarettes are equally harmful as cigarette smokers, cigarette, no? So remember na ang vape, may usok din yan. So any usok ay nakakasama sa katawan ng tao. So yun lang dapat yung iisipin nila, no? So usually yan, nakikreate nila na akala nila mabango, masarap sa pakiramdam. But the bad effects of vape, no? It's very harmful to health.
When we take a look at the role of mga LGU, mga schools in terms of education, especially for the younger sector, considering there are so many different ways to approach tobacco, e-cigarettes, vaping, also, and of course, yung efforts from the Lung Center, especially for this month in particular, just how big is the role of educating the masses, the youth, when it comes to the dangers of all of this?
I think it's very important to educate the general public, and especially yung mga smokers natin and vapers, about the dangers of cigarette smoke and vape. So, of course, aside from educating these people or the general public, kailangan mag-enforce din tayo ng strict regulations, no? The local government should enforce strict regulations on prohibiting smoking and vaping in public areas, sa school, sa offices, public terminals and transportations. And mas maganda nga yan sa community, Paolo, i-ban din yung e-cigarette.
Yeah.
Okay? So sa school naman, pwedeng i-enforce yung mga strict measures on banning e-cigarette and vapes in school premises, di ba? And actually, sinasuggest namin sa mga schools to include yung sa curriculum nila yung dangers of smoking and vaping. So para of course, malaman ng mga estudyante na very bad ito sa health nila.
There are calls to raise the legal age of vape use to 25. There are also calls for increased policies and legislative measures when it comes to regulating or even banning certain materials in certain places. You mentioned schools a while ago. What do you feel are the measures that need to be taken more seriously by our legislation to try and encourage a healthier lifestyle, especially when it comes to the issue of smoking, either tobacco, e-cigarettes, or vaping?
Okay, so children and young adults should not be allowed access to e-cigarette and vape. So based on studies, Paolo, children who are initiated early into vaping at a younger age become cigarette smokers, no, during their adult years. So eventually, they become cigarette smokers din pagtanda nila, and worse, nagiging dual users pa. So cigarette and vape. So I think the schools and the local government should enforce stricter regulations to younger generations, yung paggamit ng or access to e-cigarette and vapes. Also, what we can do is to impose penalties, no? To those who violate. Kasi actually pag nahuli ka, no, nag-violate ka, mababa lang naman yung fine. So maybe we can increase the amount of sanction or fine para talagang mag-abide. Okay? And I agree to increasing the legal age of access to vape from 18, currently it's 18 years old, to 21 or higher.
Well, Doc, we wish we had more time. To be honest, we could have a whole podcast on this issue kasi grabe, there are so many bases to cover. But we appreciate the time here. For those who want to reach out and of course find out more about yung mga programs po ninyo, especially when it comes to anti-smoking, anti-vaping, and anti-e-cigarettes, where can they reach out to find out what the Lung Center is doing?
Okay, the Quit Line 1558 is a toll-free nationwide service providing help and assistance to smokers and vapers who want to quit smoking or vaping. So it has been operational since 2017. And it has helped more than 1,000 of smokers and vapers in their quit journey. So it's one of the major flagship program of the Lung Center of the Philippines. So I want to tell na it's never too late to quit. So whenever you're ready, just dial 1558.
Now, when we return, we'll share the hidden toxins in some school supplies and share tips for parents on how to keep their kids safe. Stay with us, Weather HQ. We'll be right back. Hello there, welcome back to Weather HQ. I'm Paolo del Rosario. Now, as students prepare to head back to school, the group Ban Toxics is raising alarms over dangerous chemicals found in certain school supplies being sold in the market. Now, to give us a clearer picture, here's my interview with Mr. Tony Dizon, Advocacy and Campaign Officer of Ban Toxics.
Dito sa huling mga monitoring at testing na ginawa natin, halos namili tayo ng almost 150 samples, kabilang na dito yung mga bag, water container, pencil, crayons, at iba pang mga school items. Dito sa nasuri natin, halos nakitaan natin ito ng mga iba't ibang mga toxic chemicals, pero mas alarming yung na-detect natin doon mismo sa mga school bags at water container. Nakita natin ito doon sa presence ng mga pintura, colors doon sa mga bags at sa water container.
Well, you mentioned mga water container and I think that that's really interesting kasi medyo trend ngayon yung mga water containers na talagang makulay, yung mga water containers na talagang gusto ng mga bata, especially the more colorful ones. What can we do to ensure na yung mga water containers in particular, especially medyo mainit dito sa Pilipinas, are safe for the students?
Ang best na recommendation, suggestions ng aming grupo ay maghanap na lamang ng mga water containers na hindi pinturado, yung mga plain lang. Meron naman din tayo nakita, halos mga yung stainless lang type na water container. Meron naman talagang very minimal lang yung design. Meron din, although merong nakita tayo na made out of glass, pero meron naman siyang parang lalagyan for safety din, nitong mga items na ito. So basically, ang presence kasi ng mga ganitong chemicals, especially yung lead, ay nakita natin doon sa mga paint-coated na mga water container. So, napakadelikado nito, Paolo, dahil sa una, hinahawakan talaga ito ng mga bata. And at the same time, ay malapit siya doon sa bibig. So, which is dalawang klase ng route of exposure yan. Thermal contact and at the same time, ingestion. May mga time na yung mga water container halos nag-chip out yung mga paints nito over a period of time. So, doon tayo mas maging maingat, lalong-lalo na kung ito ay gagamitin ng ating mga anak.
Mr. Tony, is lead the key culprit dito in terms of the chemicals that we are watching out for, or are there other chemicals that we are also looking at?
Dito sa na-test natin ang mga school bags at saka water container, lead talaga yung pinaka-present nito. Halos very alarming, more than 10,000 parts per million yung na-detect natin. Sobra-sobra ito, no? Sa ilalim kasi ng Chemical Control Order for lead and lead compounds ng Department of Environment and Natural Resources, prohibited ang paggamit ng ganitong klaseng mga chemicals, especially sa children's product, particularly school supplies. Hindi na dapat talaga ito ginagamit especially dun sa mga manufacturers na gumagamit pa ng mga pintura or as ingredients itong ganitong klaseng chemical.
Sir Tony, where are these products normally sold? Sa mga mainstream markets po ba, or are they typically found in mga bargain shops for parents trying to get a better deal or cheaper costs in terms of mga school supplies po?
Ang ginawa kasi ng monitoring at product test by ay mas nag-concentrate tayo dun sa mga public markets. Kasi basically, pagka ganitong pasukan, mas hahanapin talaga ng ating mga consumer yung medyo mura, abot kaya lang ng kanilang mga budget. So dito tayo halos mas nag-concentrate. And at the same time, sobrang dami din kasi yung mga nagtitinda nito. Ang unfortunate dito is karamihan doon sa mga school supplies na nakita natin, halos hindi kompleto yung product information, wala ni isang etiketa na magsasabi sa atin saan ba ito galing, kung hindi man ito manufactured dito, sa anong bansa ito nanggaling, at ano yung mga ingredients or mga materials na ginamit nila dun sa produkto. So yan yung medyo challenging sa part ng mga consumer kung paano mas makakapili ng safe o ligtas na mga klase ng mga school supplies dito sa ating bansa.
And sir, what signs or guidelines or signages or labels ang kailangan hanapin ng mga consumers, mga parents, and even students themselves when buying school supplies to make sure that they are safe?
Naglabas ang Department of Trade and Industry ng gabay sa pamimili. But basically, nakakonsentrate lang yan dun sa price o presyo. Ang FDA, naglabas din sila ng guidelines. Kabilang na dito yung una, mainam talaga pag bumili tayo ng ganitong mga school supplies, wag lang lagi yung presyo yung ating titingnan, kundi kilatisin talaga natin ang maigi yung mga produkto. Meaning to say, tingnan natin kung may product label ito, tingnan natin, kilatisin natin yung mga materials na ginamit. Ang presence ng toxic chemicals ay nakita natin mismo doon sa mga design, very colorful design, medyo glossy, and at the same time ay pintura talaga, no? Paint talaga yung ginamit. So kung pipili man tayo, maghanap na lang tayo ng mas less, hindi sana gamit na synthetic materials ang ginamit. Meron ding nakita tayo ng mga made out of cloth na klase ng mga bag. Baka mas yun na lang yung maging preference ng ating mga consumers sa pagbili ng mga school supplies.
Sir Tony, sa opinion po ng ban toxics, is there a lack of laws or legislation when it comes to yung labeling po ng mga school products po natin to make sure that they are safe and toxic-free for students and consumers alike?
Tama yan, Sir Paolo. Merong mga regulations yung ating mga government agencies. Like yung FDA, meron silang public health advisory na inilalabas. Ang DTI, naglalabas din sila ng kanilang announcement, and even yung Department of Environment and Natural Resources. But unfortunately, yung isa sa pinupush natin talaga dito sa ating bansa, magkaroon talaga ng isang comprehensive law, particularly dun sa mga covering lahat ng mga consumer products, particularly mga children's products ito. Ito yung kulang dito sa ating bansa. And in fact, nagkaroon tayo ng effort before, I think way back 2017, when we push for a law covering all products ng mga bata, at saka comprehensively covering all types of chemicals, whether ito man ay regulated dito sa ating bansa or even abroad. Hindi nga lang ito nag-push, nagpalit na tayo ng mga government, pero hindi pa rin ito nabigyan ng priority. And hopefully, this coming 20th Congress ay bigyan ito ng priority dito sa ating bansa.
I want to focus on the analysis as well coming from ban toxics when it comes to monitoring the market for toxic products in terms of yung volume po nila, and of course identifying the chemicals present. Ano po ang methodology ng ban toxics when it comes to identifying the state of the market at the meantime, and of course yung mga chemicals that we have to be worried about at any given period?
So far, may tool tayo na ginagamit. Meron tayong device na ginagamit to quickly detect, screen toxic chemicals doon sa iba't ibang klase ng mga consumer products. But basically, isa rin sa minomonitor natin yung continuous releases, especially ng FDA. Sila kasi yung ating regulatory agency, particularly dito sa school supply. And of course, we have partners as well abroad na kung saan nagmo-monitor din simultaneous ng mga ilang regulations, international regulations. Kino-compare natin yan kung meron na sa ibang bansa na ganitong klaseng regulation, tinitingnan natin kung dito sa ating bansa ay nag-i-exist ito o hindi. So yan yung methods, protocols na sinusundan ng aming grupo. At syempre, ang pinaka-best talaga dyan ay yung continuous na on-site inspection. Pag-check, especially dito sa atin, very fanatic tayo pag may mga bagong lumalabas na mga products, na-encourage kagad tayo na bumili. So, isa rin yan doon sa binabantayan natin.
Sir Tony, may programa po kayo, the Toxics Free Schools Program. And of course, may initiative po to get the students and parents involved in the campaigns. Gaano po ka-importante ang grassroots participation in the fight against toxic, or fight for rather, toxic free school materials?
Yeah, napakaganda, Paolo, dahil this week ay tinatawag ito na observance ng National Poison Prevention Week. So, isa yan dun sa aming pinupush, especially sa mga communities and particularly yung mga schools natin na i-ensure natin na maging toxic-free and waste-free para sa kalusugan ng ating mga anak. Tandaan po natin, ang mga eskwelahan o mga paaralan ay pangalawang tahanan ng mga bata, kaya mahalaga na maisiguro kumbaga, ini-ensure natin yung kaligtasan nila sa ating bahay. Ganon din dapat po na ini-ensure din natin yung safety nila, particularly dun sa mga facilities ng mga schools. And hopefully, dito kasi sa ating bansa, Paolo, ay meron na tayo mga tinatawag na mga safe, especially dun sa paggamit ng mga paints. Kung nagre-repaint man yung ating mga school, hopefully ay lead safe na yung kanilang mga gamit. Yung iba pang mga facilities, tables, chairs, even yung mga gamit ng ating mga guro ay isinisuguro natin dito sa programa na to. Bahagi din ng aming programa, Paolo, is yung pag-ensure ng policy. Kasi over a period of time, nagpapalit yung ating mga principals, especially sa mga public schools.
Yeah.
Ini-ensure lang natin na yung policy, especially nagkakaroon tayo ng parang partnership with them, tinitingnan natin na yung mga policies nila ay intact. Particularly ilang mga Department of Education policies ay ini-implement sa iba't ibang paaralan.
And that wraps up this week's edition of Weather HQ. I'm Paolo del Rosario. Thank you so much for spending time with us this week. We'll see you again next time right here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel. Have a great weekend.